Hey everyone, this is LYS from Laddering Your Success, and you're listening to the LYS Podcast.
Hello, good afternoon, and welcome one and all to EduSteps, the online mentoring podcast powered by Laddering Your Success. I'm LYS, co-founder of Laddering Your Success, and I'm honored as always to be joined by my fellow co-founder and LYS founder, Festus Samoye. Festus, how are you doing today, brother?
I'm doing well, except for this troubleshooting. You know what I mean? Trying to make sure we're here for y'all. But other than that, I'm good.
Awesome. Yeah, it's the thing. Whenever you get a new toy, it's different than when you're a kid. When you're a kid, you just get the toy and run. When you're an adult, you got to read the manual or set it up or do something now. And the toys are getting so much more advanced. We never had toys that can fly mechanically. Or as many toys. It was more like air powered. You step on it and it goes up.
Yeah.
We got drones and stuff. So shout out to the kids, man. Shout out to the parents really for setting those things up. We're also blessed to be joined once by the future Doctor of Education, Jamar Crawford. Jamar, how you doing?
Hey man, I'm doing all right. Happy to be here with you guys.
Awesome. Yes, sir. Always honored to have you. And lastly, we have the one, the only. He's on with us. Usually he's out, saving the world. But now he's had time. He's slowing down as we get closer to the end of the year. He's here with us, starting with us. The one, the only, to him be that guy, Daniel Hill. How you doing today, brother?
Wonderful, my child. Wonderful.
You're looking spiffy there with that sweat, with that hoodie, with that sweater weather you got going on there.
Hey, that boy says spiffy.
All right, folks. Today's episode dives into a hot button topic, which is the potential abolishment of the Department of Education. We talked about this a while ago when we were going through the future of education in 2025 and beyond. And we were talking about how a lot of things in politics determines the way our systems work. And of course, since we work in an educational space, we work with teachers or educators, students, and parents. This is something that's been talked about before, but has been coming up more and more since Donald Trump was reelected as president. So we want to explore concerns, potential outcomes, and what this might mean for you and your future. All right. So quickly, I just want to go over a little bit of background info into the Department of Education. The Department of Education is about 45 years old. It started off in 1979 by Jimmy Carter, and it was created to provide federal leadership and funding for educational programs. There has been a previous attempt to abolish it. This was done most notably under Ronald Reagan. Many have advocated for the elimination of the Department of Education. However, it never happened, right? Some of the key things, the key programs that we know the Department of Education for: elementary and secondary education, Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, FAFSA, Pell Grants, right? The Department of Education runs that. It's one of the things I remember when I filled out my FAFSA in high school. If you looked at the top left or top right, there was a little circle with a tree, and it said Department of Education. So, they run that. Student loan programs, Title IX, gender equality for education, sports, athletics, data collection and research, advocacy and policy, and civil rights enforcement. All right. Now, it must be said, something that the Department of Education does not do, or some of the things that they don't do, is they don't directly control school curricula, graduation requirements, or state testing standards. These responsibilities remain at the state and local levels. And so I think that's pretty unique because, I'll talk to friends who've had kids here in California, in Michigan, and in other states, and they talk about the differences they notice in those different places. So it just goes to show that, you're in America, you're going to be learning the same general things, but from state to state, there are certain nuances that are different based off of the culture. Some of the controversies that the Department of Education has gone through: federal versus state control over education, standardized testing and accountability measures, funding and budget allocations, and political appointments and leadership. Recently, 2017, President eliminating the DOE. 2020, we had COVID-19. The pandemic highlighted disparities in education, so it really exacerbated a lot of those issues that we saw from a socioeconomic, from a financial standpoint in terms of education. And 2022 calls for reform and reorganization, all right? And so here's a couple stats on the DOE or who they serve. About 50 million students in public schools. There's about 7,000 schools in low-income areas. And right now we are about $1 billion in regards to student loan debt. DOE works with groups such as teachers unions, education advocacy organizations, civil rights groups, and business and industry leaders. Okay. So let's talk about some real quickly, some of the points for elimination. One of the things we have to think about is the impact on students. Federal programs that support disadvantaged students might lose funding, exacerbating educational inequities, loss of coordination. The absence of a centralized body could reduce the effectiveness of nationwide initiatives, such as Pell Grants and Title I funding, and the effect on research. Without the educational department, data collection and dissemination on school performance could be fragmented, impacting policy decisions. So I say all of that, number one, to give us background, but two, so we can start the conversation and ask that first question, which is, how would eliminating the Department of Education affect federal financial aid programs for students?
I think the doctor should hop on first. Dr. Crawford, you want to?
Yeah, for sure. Just so I can make sure I'm answering the question, is it how does the closure of the Department of Education affect the financial aid for students?
Yes.
That's correct.
Yes.
Okay, cool. So I think it depends on how they handle it. I'm pretty sure I don't think the situation is go close the Department of Education without a plan. I'm pretty sure they're gonna need some kind of plan in place to make this work out. And depending on what that is, I'm not saying it's good or bad, but I definitely feel like it will affect financial aid. I believe it was when it comes to student loans, they would try to hand that over to the U.S. Department of Treasury so that they can handle the school loans. Again, we don't know what that will look like, but if I could assume the worst of the worst, right, I would say that the cost of education would increase because the schools would have to come up with a way to overcome that lack of support from the federal government through student loans. So then the cost of education would probably increase, which would definitely limit the access for our low income students, to make it definitely hard for them to equal the playing field in getting that education. Man, it's definitely going to be a sad day, but I just want to keep my mind open and ears open to get more information to see what kind of plan that they will have if the Department of Education is dismantled, especially when it comes to federal student aid programs that are currently in place to support students of low income and other situations or circumstances.
Man, you making it sound like they went ahead and did it already. It did it already.
Now, I just had to be informed because I know it's not like just dismantle it, but so far the part of the plan they haven't gave specific detail is that the Department of Treasury will handle loans from that.
So, and real quick, are you saying that there's already been guidance put out? Can you share the guidance so that people can go ahead and look it up?
Nah, I mean it's not there in detail, but it's when you look into the actual plan. So all I did was I went and did details on the purpose of dismantling the Department of Education, and then you have the Republican stuff, and it comes up and it gives the information of what it's not giving a plan, but it's like a oversight of, hey, well, the plan or the idea is that the U.S. Department of Treasury would take over the student loans, and then that's basically like all I got. It's not detail of we got this, we're gonna do this, we're gonna do this, we're gonna do this, but that is something that they're talking about. So
yeah, to me, I'm always about going back to the basics, and I appreciate Olay for sharing the details regarding like how it got started. And so to me, I think when you look at the Department of Education being as young as it is, you have to ask yourself some questions. The number one question for us who were born after the Department of Education came to be is like, well, what were things like before the Department of Education? So obviously there was something missing that ended up saying, hey, we need to create this department. So I think that's the thing that we all need to realize is like there was something missing that made them go ahead and come up with the Department of Education. Now, I think in that lane or in that vein of creating it, I think that we need to ask ourselves, is the need still there? I think Ole brought up some very good points about data collection, student loans, all those different types of things. And so to me, I think that that's kind of the scary part, but they're saying the quiet part out loud. Okay, and what do I mean by that? The scary part is when you really boil it down, the student loan debt crisis is really us owing the government. And what do I mean by us? Us who have student loans. So, when you look at President Biden and kind of their, plan to pay off student loans, a lot of that plan came from the fact that, hey, it's people who owe the government student loans. And what do I mean by that? Because the way it's kind of shadowy and kind of figurey is that, let's say you take a loan, usually it's a federal grant, federal Perkins, federal this, federal that, or it's federally backed to a third party that then pays the school. So oftentimes we tend to think about like, okay, student loans, who paid the school? So somebody paid the school. So you don't owe your school anymore after you graduate. You owe somebody else. And usually it's a third party who's collecting those funds. So what that is very interesting, I think that brings about, because you got people like Navient, like what's the other one? Navient's kind of the big one. There's a few others that their whole entire business model is about being student loan collectors for the government. And so this is going to affect a lot of people if the Department of Education was to close and they were to do it through the IRS, which is, well, not the IRS, but the Treasury Department, which the Treasury Department functions hand in hand with the IRS. So basically, instead of paying Sally Mae back, you're going to be paying, IRS back. You know what I'm saying? And so I think, we have to think about the broad reaching effects of this. And so whether it's good or bad, it's going to affect a lot of people's lives. And so I'll kind of cap with that.
I also think, because you touched on a great topic when you talked about the student loan debt crisis. And I think a part of that, because I see why they're trying to, change that crisis or do something about it. But at the same time, at the educational level, I think that there's something there. There's a problem that hasn't been addressed. Like, how do we set students up for success to where, hey, you need to be informed, make informed decisions about going to school and getting your degree. Is the return of investment even worth it going into this degree field? Because what's happening is with this debt crisis, so many people are going to school and taking out these loans and getting employment that doesn't even equate for them to make a stable lifestyle to where they can support themselves. And then, now they got to take care of all of this debt. And so I think within our generation, it was go to school, just go to school, you'll be successful. Well, now it's opening eyes that, going to college and getting a college degree does not equate or ensure you being successful in whatever lifestyle you would like to have. And that's kind of like the reality. We have people majoring in certain majors that doesn't equate to employment,
Hey, LYS fam. It's Ole. Thanks so much for listening to LYS. I just wanted to take a quick moment to talk to the parents. That's right, mom and dad. Parents, prepare your child for their best educational fit after high school with our comprehensive LYS Parents Guidebook. Our helpful guide includes a range of activities designed to help you better understand your child's unique gifts and abilities. Additionally, we provide valuable insights into the student loan debt crisis and offer practical tips on how to avoid accumulating large amounts of debt. Our ebook also includes a wealth of information on scholarships, grants, and payment exemptions that can help guide your child towards a bright and successful future. With our expert guidance, you can rest assured that your child is well prepared to make informed decisions about their education and career path. Don't let your child's future be in jeopardy. Invest in their future today by downloading the LYS Parents Guidebook. Simply go to lys.com/parents to get your copy today. Now let's get back to the show because you know it's some good topics.
Yeah, and I could speak more on that topic, which will kind of, I think, help some people out, is that when you sit down and you think about it regarding, why was everybody told to go to college in the 80s and the 90s? Like that, everybody was told 80s, 90s, 2000s, go to college, go to college, go to college. And I remember this advice distinctly because it became like the mantra is go to college, you'll figure it out when you get there, right? And to me, shout out to Julian Gordon. Back in the day, Julian Gordon. Now Julian Gordon, I don't know. But that's a whole other subject. He had this great analogy of like going to the grocery store. Anytime you go to the grocery store without a list, you always either end up forgetting something, end up getting something you didn't need, right? Or you end up spending more time in the grocery store because you're like, oh no, and you're calling somebody back, hey, you got the milk, all of that stuff. You know what I'm saying? And the reality is you do the same thing when it comes to education. And that was the illustration that he gave, is when you go to school without a plan, you end up staying there a lot longer. And I know this because when I graduated from, my education journey was really interesting because, I went to community college, shout out to HEC. Then I went to a 4-year institution, which was a private institution. So in terms of diversity of experience, I don't think you could get much wider than that, going to a 4-year private institution from a community college. So it was just very interesting because, again, in the community college setting, as a student, even though I was, 18, 19, 20, I'm looking around and there's 40-year-olds there. It's like, whoa, what you doing here? And it's like, man, I'm trying to, kind of figure it out now. I'm going back to work. I need more certificates. I need this, I need that. So people were there for all kind of different reasons. But then you go to a private 4-year institution, and it's like mommy, daddy got money and they're paying for it for the most part, or you're an athlete or you're a veteran. Those was like the main 3 type of people that was going there. And so the thing that was really interesting in regards to student loans was how much time, energy, and effort was put into understanding why you're at that institution, right? The community college level, some people say, oh, I couldn't afford school, so, I'm just here. Then you got, again, the quote unquote working class that's like, hey, I need to do this to uplift my family. I want to be the first person to graduate. That's one of the reasons why I was there. And then at, kind of these larger private institutions, it's like, well, we're legacy. We're 3rd generation here. You know what I mean? And so it's really interesting when you take all that into account, and how it plays into student loans is that since the government is the primary generator of student loans or the primary buyer of student loans, because a lot of people don't even realize this, is that your student loans, that loan, it can be sold. So when you get that paper that says, oh, this person's processing your loans now, usually in the background, they looked at the documents and they said, okay, such and such owes this. Cool. You want to buy this? I'll sell it to you for this.
Hey, LYS fam, it's Ole. Just wanted to take a quick break to let you know that even though the cost of college can be daunting, the LYS Scholarship Guide ebook can assist you in realizing your dreams. You can identify and apply for scholarships using the information, advice, and resources in our comprehensive guide. Also, we've provided a template for a successful scholarship essay to help you stand out from the crowd. Don't allow student loan debt to control you. Get your copy of the LYS Scholarship Guide ebook right away to take charge of your destiny. Simply go to lys.com/parents to get your copy today. Now let's get back to that fire conversation.
Now you have to ask yourself, well, what makes a loan valuable? Why would somebody buy a loan? Well, you buy a loan based off of one thing and one thing only, the interest rate. What is the interest rate? Maybe 2 things. What is the interest rate on that loan? Because if you're buying debt and you're buying, let's say, $10,000 worth of debt, where's the value come from? It comes back from this person paying on that debt. So because that person's paying on that debt, if you go to, again, a bigger institution where they charge more tuition. Once the school gets their money and is out the way, when you go start paying those student loans back, right? The bigger the bill, the more interest is collected. So more people are interested in, collecting those things. And so this is where I think counselors could do a better job. Definitely parents could do a better job setting your child up for success. But I think also as a community, this is where we could come together to say, hey, let's help students make the best possible decision for their futures. Not everybody needs to go to college. Not everybody needs to be in a trade. But as we always say at the close of the show, there are legitimate excuses for not going to college, but there's no excuse for not getting an education. Everybody needs an education. So I'll pause right there with that.
All right. Since you mentioned interest, it's important to talk about this on the student loans, what I'm finna say, because you basically was giving information and educating people or the audience about the student loans. A thing that's really important that a lot of people don't understand, that there's only two types of loans that you accept when you're going to college. That's the subsidized loan and the unsubsidized loan. And what's getting people is because they don't know the difference between the two types of loans. And so when you were talking about why would these companies, or why would they sell off loans? Well, when you have a subsidized loan at this current moment, the Department of Education, right, the government actually pays the interest on that loan while you're in college, right? And it's not until you graduate and then 6 months later, it's not until you graduate that the interest of that loan rolls over to you from that day forward, right? But then when you have an unsubsidized loan, here's the tricky part. Let's say you're borrowing however much money you're borrowing to pay for school. That unsubsidized loan, you're being charged interest the day that you accept that loan while you're in school. So that's where the bang for the buck is coming in for these companies, because you're thinking, hey, I only borrow X amount of dollars. By the time you graduate, let's say it take you 4 years, and sometimes it may take people 6 years. On your freshman year, that first loan you accepted, if it was unsubsidized, interest has been accruing on that loan for 6 years. And then that's how they're getting the bang for that buck on those loans. So that's just real important information for people to understand and read the fine print of, hey, this is subsidized loan, this is unsubsidized loan. And you actually have to click that box and read the acknowledgement and actually read everything so you can understand that the day you accept that loan of an unsubsidized loan, they are charging you interest from that day. So just needed to give that information as well.
And it's a lot of free game out here, bro. People need to tune into the podcast.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. All right. So next question that I had was, could state government effectively handle the education department's roles with educational disparities? State governments effectively handle the education department's roles without increasing educational disparities. What are your thoughts? Can they, yes or no?
Well, I think at the end of the day, the state governments are the ones who are ultimately responsible, right? And I think that's the thing that is very, very important to keep an eye on and hold your local elected officials accountable, right? Is that a lot of people just think, oh, I'm voting for a president, when really, and like, for example, I'm not, trying to make a political statement, but it is what it is. What surprised me was that, the House and Senate all moved over, and what people were talking about in 2018 supposed to be red wave is this year. Again, it is what it is. So my thing, and the reason why that surprised me so much, is that you should know and be able to get more access to information on your local official, because again, they deal more with your day-to-day life, right? They're the ones who, when a law comes up for vote, they're the ones who make the law. When it comes down to enforcement of the law in your local area, it comes down to those local elected officials. You know what I'm saying? So those are things that I think we didn't really quite account for in this particular election, even though it's not just election related. But I think the thing is, in regard to should the state, Department of Education hand over more responsibility to the states, and or vice versa. I think states ultimately deal with that anyway. So to me, I think the real question is, how can we streamline things and make things more effective? That's That's my thoughts.
I definitely think that there be weekend protections when it comes to civil rights and equity of education, because the Department of Education does play, a significant role in enforcing, civil rights laws in schools and protections against discrimination based on race, gender, disability, socioeconomic status, and things of that nature. I think disparities within education would definitely increase with the states being in control, and there would be inequities among from state to state. So I think it's really going to affect students, especially vulnerable populations, such as minorities and low income students, disabled students. So I think it'd just be challenging for those individuals to get the support and help that they need, since that government backing or the Department of Education backing will be dismantled.
So one of the side questions that I had earlier as we were talking was, I think Crawford, you had mentioned something about setting up all students for success and keeping them informed. And I immediately had asked myself a question. I said, is the goal truly to keep minorities and underserved communities and people who live in lower SES communities? Is the goal to keep them set up for success and keep them informed?
Well, you're talking about the current structure?
Yes, the current structure, and with the change and with the idea of potentially abolishing.
Well, with the current structure, it's not really based on information, it's based on funds. So when you have things like the No Child Left Behind, which has been changed since Barack Obama has been in president, it changed to the Equitable Student Success Act. So it's to ensure school funds are allocated for these, I'm gonna call them, right? And so with these funds, the people that it affects, they won't have the information unless they go out there and they are involved and look for the information, right? And their rights within those situations. But with these laws and acts put in place, the Department of Education are over ensuring that, okay, these funds go here, go here. These funds are specifically for these type of schools that are low income or X, Y, and Z or whatever. So it's to create equity through financial access. Now, the problem is what the individual districts and schools choose to purchase with their finances affects the student's success, if that makes sense.
Say it one more.
What part?
The
I
last,
think
the last.
the last
Oh,
part
the
was
last thing I went. Now, the laws and policies are in place is to ensure equity through financial funding for the different schools. Not really based. The assumption is if these particular circumstances or schools get more money, then they should perform at the same rate at their counterparts, right? That are not struggling or whatever. But it's depends on specific districts and how they spend those finances, which don't really correlate to ensure academic success for those individuals, such as low SES or low economic status, or our special needs students and or students with disabilities. It doesn't correlate and ensure student success.
So I'm gonna break that down for the slow folk like me. What he's saying is, let's say the federal government, gives $20 to be spent, and that $20 goes into the hands of the state elected official, that eventually goes into the hands of the school board, right? That eventually goes into the hands of the superintendent. What eventually happens is a little bit of that money's taken off along the way. And when it finally hits that school board, it may be $16 left. And that $16, the school board is the one who votes on what books, or they vote on, should we put in a ramp, a wheelchair ramp, versus should we get Braille books, versus should we hire a speech language pathologist and whatnot. So the individual school ends up with that ultimate responsibility.
The main part that I want to add to that way, how he broke it down, is that that does not ensure or correlate to the student's academic success. Because I believe that was one of the things that you had asked me about, Ole.
Hey, bro.
Go ahead, Dane.
Also, yeah, I think what Crawford's trying to understand is like what make it is like what Crawford's talking about. Like, it's not going to ensure it because it's not the same type of kids. Like, you got to think about this. If it comes to what they basing teachers off of, what's it called? Because I really don't know. I went and asked somebody about the Department of Education. It was like, well, our funding don't come from them. Most of our money don't come from them anyway. They like they were telling me they wouldn't come. Most of it come from the local. That's why now the rules might come from up there, but if the rules coming from up there, it's still not working. You know what I'm saying? Because the people, I'll just use Katie. Katie's rules ain't the same as our rules. You know what I'm saying? Like Katie could kick out. But here's the thing is, if they make it, they go back to basing teachers off of, I guess, merit and scores. It's pretty much done trying to go work at what's it called inner city school. Cause if you base me off of somebody who don't even come to class, come to school, I'm not going there anymore. I'm going out there with them people, make my money, and go home and be peaceful. But then somebody complain, but it's they don't fault. But I don't really know how it's all gonna work. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it is like it's they don't fault. Like they complain and complain. Like it's like they complain, but they don't bring their kids to school. So when it gets to the point where it's like, are you basing me off merit? Then the state gonna come back like, hey, somebody will teach them kids. I'm not going to teach them kids because you basing my life off a kid don't come to school. You base my life, my scores like Crawford teaches hard out, but if a kid don't come to school, if they don't want to do their work, I might have to go out there where if a kid don't act right, they kick them out because they focus on their scores. Like I mean, one kid I used to have, y'all all know, I ain't gonna say his name. It starts with an A. We actually traded for a while, Sharonki. You already know what I'm talking about, huh? He left our district, went to another district, bro, he gone. He like, yeah, man, them people out there ain't playing. Like it's a whole different level when it's based off of like if our money is based off of how many kids in C, or it's just like Kate and them like Kate, like you know what I'm saying? We don't need this government money. We got our own money. You see what I'm saying? So that's gonna be one of the major changes, bro. I think. I just gotta see. Like I don't know how it's all gonna work. It might be a good change. Who knows? Like everybody's. I mean, people so worried. Like, bro, I don't know what's gonna happen because nothing good has happened anyway. So I just want to see what's going to happen. Go ahead, Carl.
Well, it definitely will affect us public school teachers because with the promotion of the idea of expanding school choice, right?
Hey, LYS fam. It's Ole once again. You know, these days, many families are busy but want personalized attention. We at Laddering Your Success understand this dilemma and have created a unique approach to help guide you and your child with personal development tools to build a life of purpose. This intimate approach is helpful for those parents that feel the need to have a focused heart-to-heart conversation deciding on the next steps after high school. We provide individual post-secondary planning, virtual customized college and career counseling, and scholarship guidance and planning. Our one-on-one sessions are tailored to each individual student to maximize their potential in the post-secondary realm. With our guidance, your child will be able to make their dreams a reality. Don't wait. Simply go to lys.com/parents to get your copy today. Now let's get back to business on this podcast.
So that's one of the things that he's trying to do that would affect the public school teachers, because when we look at public school, the funding, like Daniel just mentioned, it is based on the number of students that are in the seats, right? And so if they're planning to expand the school choice idea, and you have parents willing to go here, that does affect the number of people that us public school teachers may service, and that could affect, our livelihoods and our pay and things of that nature.
Hey, I was gonna add on that if Crawford finished. It's like people. His thing, you can choose wherever your child goes. If your child's still your child, they still not gonna act right. Like they think it's the base off the school. I mean, sometimes teachers don't want to do nothing, but if you can move your child in different schools, if they're not gonna act right, it is what it is. Like, oh, it's the school. Ma'am, your child has 16 referrals. Like, it's not the school, it's your child. Like, and then a lot of people think, oh, this tax credit is gonna help out. I think they were trying to give $8,000 to $10,000 for private school. Oh yeah, bro. Private school is not $10,000 no more a year, bro. Like, I was go see a private school with my niece, and my brother was like, oh no. he paid a lot for the last one, but the one with down here, it's nice school. It's only about 4 kids per class, but it's $35,000 a year or a semester, something like that. So that 10,000 ain't gonna help you, bro. You still gonna be where you are trying to send your kid. And charter schools, you have to literally be present and do stuff with the kids. You gotta go to events. If these parents ain't going to events now, they're not gonna leave your kid in that charter school. Cause hey, Professor, don't you go to a private or charter school right now? Is it private?
Yeah, charter school, and I could kind of speak on it from the parent standpoint.
Yeah, go ahead, bro.
Is and I was sharing this with Crawford the other night. Is like, your level of involvement as a parent matters significantly. So even though our kids are in kindergarten and first grade, we're kind of on average doing about 2 hours of homework a night because the charter school they go to is an immersion program, so they learn Spanish, Mandarin, and English. And so because of that, they're getting this variety of education. Well, you got Spanish homework and you got English homework, which I'm glad they ain't no Mandarin because we barely even skimming the Spanish as it is. You know what I'm saying? But which is good. It's a good quality education. It at least makes them think from a well-rounded perspective. It's funny because again, our 6-year-old, every time we're kind of walking, like, Daddy, they speak of Spanish, it's like, which is interesting. But again, your level of involvement matters significantly. And I'll talk about this because this actually is an ongoing situation with us. Is our older son really enjoys and respects his teacher. They have a very close relationship. And so if his teacher tells him to do something, he's like, yo, I'm Johnny on the spot. I'm his helper, I'm whatever, you know what I'm saying? But our son also does pullouts with a small group teacher, kind of a reading specialist or whatnot. And so he goes there and then it's, he live at 5. And so, we're like, yo, you get in trouble the same way. Them up downs, his legs is burning. You know what I'm saying? So he's like, in his mind, depending on who he's with, he can act up, right? And so I think that's something that every parent needs to consider is that, yes, your child has a teacher, but there are also other people who help them learn in that environment. And so your child needs to, behave, and not just behave, but be ready to learn. I think there's a massive difference between trying to, kind of curtail behavior versus like priming them and make them ready to learn. So
I like how you said that because because I've had kids go to charter school and come right back. When he told me, oh yeah, I'm actually reading go to charter school, I was like, I busted out laughing. I was like, bro, your parents, it was a long time ago, bro, your parents don't come up now. Like, they have weekend stuff you have to go to. They have stuff throughout the year you have to go through. I think, Festus, how many different things y'all gotta go through throughout the 9 weeks? Like, there's different events y'all have to come, right?
Well, our school doesn't make us have to come, but they're pretty, how would I put this, involved in parental involvement. So, we got the class dojo, so you're getting hit in the class dojo maybe 2-3 times a day, or sometimes 4 because they're doing it in English and in Spanish. And so, you do have a variety of events. Usually it's about 2 a month. I'm gonna say maybe 3 a month. And so, again, because they don't operate exactly the same as a public school, you could tell the difference. Just like you said, like, we have to, because it's a charter school, we actually have to drop our kids off. There's no buses that go to school. So we actually have to drop them off. So that means, you waking up, you get there and you see the parents in the pajamas, what I'm saying, and all that stuff, but it's funny because at the beginning of the year, you see how hard and long that line is to drop the kids off. And like around this time, it's cut it near in half. And a lot of people think, oh, why is it cut in half? And it's because they're gonna hold you accountable, and so a lot of people just don't want the accountability. And to me, this is the sad but hard reality is anytime you don't have an investment in something you need to have an investment in, such as your child's education, you're going to suffer first. See, society does suffer eventually, But I'll end with that.
Hey, I like how you've been talking about. See, I don't think people know there's a difference. Because if they fail, charter schools don't have to keep them, right? Like if they get F's and fail semester, I don't think the scholar schools have to keep them, right?
Well, the accountability is the same as with a public school. So, for example, they still got to take the STAR test and all those different types of things. But the thing is, they're just gonna push. You know what I mean? And to me, I don't think what they're asking for is outrageous. Your child to be ready to learn, to come to school ready and willing to learn. I don't think that's outrageous.
They're literally just teaching how they taught us. When I used to get home back, like we used to have homework. We used to have this. Now they're saying homework is too hard. Bro, I gave them 20 problems for the week. Bro, I let you do it in class. But also they understand is like you can choose the school, like I said. If you still don't change your ways, like everybody, if we don't change our ways, all you're gonna do is get more calls from that school. Because that school ain't playing about that school's grades ain't coming down. Like that A status is not coming down. So
But I think one of the things is the charter schools, even though you can choose that, they don't have to accept you though. I think that's one of the difference between public school and charter school. Because when you look at a public school, we have to accept all of those students that are in, the neighborhoods and stuff like that. And I think one of the key differences, which you kind of like alluding to here, is that they don't have to accept that student.
Yeah, see, that's why. Go ahead.
Yes and no, because again, our school, just like another school, gets paid off attendance. So they want the attendance just like everybody else, but how do I put it? The school administration is not the same. So for example, our school runs kind of more of a corporate structure. So there's a CEO, CFO, all of those different types of things. Whereas public school is more of the superintendent. I mean, don't get me wrong, there's superintendent in our school too, but all in all, the school is looking for what's happening in the school itself versus in the community as much, right? So, for example, if let's say you have, and I'm just using this hypothetically, I'm not saying anything. Let's say you have HISD and you have A-Leaf. Well, HISD and A are vying to a certain degree for some similar students. Well, then you have this other school over here who says, man, I could take a student from anywhere in the city, as long as they don't even have to live here because we don't have a district per se. You see what I'm saying? Yeah. So they could take a student from anywhere. So for them, it's like we need to keep enough students to keep our bottom line, right? Because again, we get paid based off of attendance the same way anybody else, any other public school would. But I think that's the thing is that, well, what is the bottom line? So for again, an A-Leaf or a HISD, their bottom line is tax dollars, right? So meaning who lives in that district and who pays taxes to that district, whereas the charter school is based more off of attendance and saying, hey, if we have 10,000 kids, we make this. We have 20,000 kids, we make this. So they're just competing a little bit differently.
This is really, really good. I actually think folks, we should make this a two-parter. So I think we can continue this conversation next week because I had a couple questions as we were talking. I was like, ooh, this is really good. All right, I should save this. I should save that. So I think what we'll do is we'll probably make this a two-parter. We'll continue this discussion next week talking about the potential abolishment of the Department of Education. So wonderful conversation, guys. I really, really love this conversation. Folks, I want to say thanks again. Thank you so much for listening to EduSteps, powered by Laddering Your Success. Thank you so much to the future Dr. Jamar Crawford. Thank you so much for that guy, Daniel Hill, for the wonderful contributions. Be sure to follow us on social media, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, or take a look at our website, www.ladder for more info. My name is Ole Sharanki, here with my co-founder, Festus Moye. Festus, please give him the phrase that pays, my good sir.
So listen, there are legitimate excuses for not going to college. There's no legitimate excuse for not getting an education. Listen, if you are a counselor and you heard this, share it with some parents. Okay, just do it on the slide. Just be like, look, I think you benefit from this. If you're a parent, share this with your counselor and say, hey, this is an interesting conversation. Tell me more. If you're a student, you definitely need to hear this. You definitely need to tune in. Definitely, especially for our Steps to Success series. We're going to have a lot more. We're looking forward as we close out this year to being a major blessing to students everywhere. And so, listen, we will catch you on the next episode. Thanks so much for your time. Y'all be blessed.
Oh, you still there? Well, thank you so much for listening to the LYS podcast.